In the electric hum of Lincoln High's morning assembly, Ms. Alina Carter, a new history teacher, steps into the spotlight, her heart racing with dreams of inspiring young minds. But when senior bullies, led by the untouchable quarterback Jake Ramsey, unleash a glitter-soaked prank that leaves her humiliated, the crowd roars with laughter. What they don't know, Alina's quiet grace hides a black belt in Judo and a past that forged her steel resolve. One jaw-dropping throw will flip their world upside down. Want epic comebacks? Subscribe for stories that hit hard. The sun rose over Lincoln High, a sprawling suburban campus in Ohio, where the air crackled with the restless energy of a new school year. The courtyard buzzed with students, freshmen clutching schedules, seniors strutting with confidence, and teachers herding stragglers toward the auditorium for the first morning assembly. Inside, the cavernous space hummed with anticipation. Not for Principal Hargrove's predictable speech, but for the introduction of a new teacher, Miss Alina Carter, whose name had already sparked whispers in the hallways. Rumors swirled. She was young, intense, and maybe a little out of place in this tight-knit town. Backstage, Lena adjusted her navy blazer, smoothing it over her crisp white blouse. At 32, she carried herself with a quiet poise. Her chestnut hair pulled into a neat bun, hazel eyes scanning the crowd through a crack in the curtain. She'd spent years preparing for this, her first teaching job after a master's in history, and a decade of judo training that channeled her restless spirit. Lincoln High was her fresh start, far from the chaos of her past in Chicago, where personal losses had tested her resilience. But as she watched the sea of students, her stomach knotted. She'd overheard cafeteria chatter about the senior clique, led by Jake King Ramsey, the star quarterback whose charm and cruelty ruled the school. His crew, Tyler, Mia, and Nate, followed his every move. And they'd already marked her as their next target. Principal Hargrove, a balding man with a perpetually damp forehead, took the podium, his voice droning over the restless crowd. "Settle down, everyone," he barked, adjusting his tie. "We're here to kick off the year and introduce our new faculty." The students fidgeted, some scrolling phones, others whispering. When Hargrove said, "Please welcome Ms. Alina Carter, our new history teacher," a lukewarm applause followed. Alina stepped forward, her heels clicking on the polished stage, her prepared speech about history's power to shape the future ready on her lips. But before she could speak, a sharp whistle pierced the air. Jake Ramsey, lounging in the front row, his Letterman jacket slung over broad shoulders, grinned wickedly. "Yo, new teacher, you lost or what?" he called, his voice carrying over the crowd. Laughter erupted. "Allah," his lanky best friend elbowed Nate, who snorted. "Allah." Mia, a cheerleader, with a sharp tongue, leaned forward, her ponytail bouncing as she giggled. Elena's cheeks burned, but she forced a smile, gripping the podium. "Thank you, Principal Hargrove," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "I'm thrilled to be at Lincoln High." A loud pop cut her off. Glitter rained from above, a shimmering cascade unleashed from a rigged balloon. The auditorium exploded in cheers as the sparkling mess coated Elena's hair, blazer, and notes, turning her into a human disco ball. Jake and his crew were on their feet, high-fiving, their laughter drowning out Hargrove's shouts for order. Mia cupped her hands and yelled, "Welcome to Lincoln, Sparkles." The nickname spread like wildfire, students chanting "Sparkles, Sparkles." Selena stood frozen, glitter clinging to her eyelashes. Her speech was forgotten, her dignity buried under the sparkling onslaught. Hargrove stormed the stage, barking at the janitors to clean up and ordering the students to their classes. As the crowd dispersed, still snickering, Alina brushed glitter from her sleeves, her jaw tight. She'd faced worse grief, betrayal, a life that had forced her to rebuild from nothing, but this stung. The humiliation wasn't just personal. It was a challenge to her authority, a signal to every student that she was weak. But Alina wasn't weak. Judo had taught her that strength wasn't loud or brash. It was precise, controlled, and devastating when unleashed. She'd bide her time and turn their game against them. The next morning, Alina arrived at her classroom early, glitter still faintly sparkling in her hair. despite 3 showers. Her first period was senior history, and Jake's clique was enrolled. She'd spent the night planning, not just lessons, but a strategy to reclaim her classroom. History was her weapon. Stories of underdogs who outsmarted empires would resonate even with these kids. As students trickled in, Jake sauntered to the front, dropping into a desk with a lazy grin. "Morning, Sparkles," he said, loud enough for the class to hear. Tyler and Nate chuckled, while Mia snapped a photo, her fingers flying over her phone to post it to the school's gossip-fueled group chat. Alina ignored the jab, launching into her lesson on the American Revolution. She spoke with passion, weaving tales of guerrilla fighters who turned British arrogance against them. Most students doodled or scrolled, but a quiet girl in the back, Sarah, listened intently, her eyes bright with interest. Sarah was an outsider, often ignored by the popular crowd, and Alina felt a kinship with her. But Jake wasn't done. Mid-lesson, he tossed a crumpled paper at Elena's desk, missing her by inches. "Oops," he said, smirking. The class tittered. Alina picked up the paper, unfolding it to reveal a cartoon of her drowning in glitter, labeled Sparkles the Clown. She met Jake's gaze, her expression unreadable. "Creative," she said calmly. "But let's focus on revolutionaries who used strategy, not childish pranks." The class fell silent, surprised by her composure. Jake's smirk faltered, but he leaned back, muttering, "Whatever, Sparkles." The bullying intensified over the next week. Jake's crew turned every class into a gauntlet. They accidentally spilled water near Elena's desk, left sticky notes with Sparkles scrawled on them, and whispered bets on how long she'd last. Alina endured it, her judo training keeping her emotions in check. She focused on her lessons, earning the respect of quieter students like Sarah, who stayed after class to discuss the French Revolution and shyly admitted she admired Elena's patience. But the faculty room offered no escape. Teachers whispered about the glitter incident, some offering pity, others predicting she'd quit by Halloween. Elena's resolve was tested at the Friday pep rally, a raucous event celebrating the football team before the homecoming game. She was required to attend, seated near the front with other faculty. As Jake took the stage to thunderous cheers, his eyes found Alina. "Let's give a shout-out to Ms. Sparkles," he called, pointing at her. The crowd roared, some chanting Sparkles again. Mia, in her cheerleader uniform, tossed a handful of confetti toward Alina, mimicking the glitter prank. The humiliation burned, but Elena's mind flashed to her dojo, 2 lessons of balance and leverage. She wouldn't break. She'd redirect their energy. That night, Elena devised a plan. She'd heard about Lincoln High's annual teacher talent show. It's a fundraiser where faculty performed to entertain students and parents. It was in 2 weeks, and Sarah, who'd become Elena's quiet ally, overheard Jake's crew plotting to sabotage her act. They assumed she'd sing or recite poetry, something they could mock mercilessly. Alina signed up, but her performance would be no song. She spent hours in her small apartment practicing judo forms, choreographing a demonstration that would showcase her skill without violence. She'd turn their mockery into a lesson they'd never forget. But there was more to Elena's past than anyone knew. In Chicago, she'd been a competitive judoka, training under a sensei who saw her potential when she was a troubled teen. Her older brother, Marcus, had been her biggest supporter, pushing her to channel her anger into discipline after their parents' divorce tore their family apart. But Marcus's death in a car accident 5 years ago had shattered her, forcing her to rebuild her life. Judo became her anchor, and teaching was her way of honoring Marcus's belief in her. The Bullies' pranks weren't just personal, they were a challenge to the strength she'd fought to reclaim. The talent show arrived, the auditorium packed with students, parents, and faculty. Jake and his crew sat front and center, whispering and laughing as Elena's name was announced. She walked on stage in a black GI barefoot, her presence commanding despite her small frame. The crowd murmured, confused. No glitter, no sparkles. Just Ms. Carter, calm and centered. She took the mic and spoke clearly. Tonight I'm sharing a piece of my history. Judo is about strength, discipline, and using an opponent's force against them. I need a volunteer." Her eyes locked on Jake. The crowd gasped, then cheered as he strutted on stage, playing to their excitement. "All right, Sparkles, let's see what you got," he said, cracking his knuckles. Alina smiled faintly. "Attack me," she said. Jake laughed, lunging with a playful shove, expecting her to stumble. In one fluid motion, Alina sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and executed a perfect uchimata, sending him flipping onto the mat with a thud. The auditorium exploded in cheers, half in shock, half in awe. Jake scrambled up, red-faced, but Alina offered her hand. "Again?" she asked, her voice steady. Jake, egged on by the crowd, charged harder, aiming to overpower her. Alina used his momentum, twisting into a say afterwards. She extended her hand again, her voice carrying over the mic. "Strength isn't about size or bravado. It's about control and respect for yourself and others." The crowd roared with approval, giving her a standing ovation as Jake slunk back to his seat, his pride visibly shaken. The fallout was immediate. By Monday, videos of Alina's judo throw had gone viral on the school's social media, shared with captions like "Sensei Carter owns" and "Sparkles, who?" Students whispered in the halls, some mimicking her throws in jest, others looking at her with newfound respect. But Jake wasn't done. Humiliated, he cornered Alina after school in a quiet hallway, his crew behind him. "You think you're tough now?" he sneered, stepping closer. "This isn't over, Sparkles." Before Alina could respond, Sarah appeared from around the corner, holding up her phone. "I recorded everything," she said, her voice trembling, but firm. "The glitter, the confetti, the notes, all of it. Post one more thing about Miss Carter, and this goes to the principal and online." Jake froze, his crew exchanging nervous glances. Sarah, the quiet girl who'd been invisible to them, had been documenting their bullying for weeks, building a digital dossier. Mia's face paled. She'd been the one posting the most online. Jake muttered a curse and backed off his crew. Following the twist didn't end there. The next day, Alina found an anonymous note on her desk, scrawled in messy handwriting. "Sorry about the glitter. Didn't know about your brother." Her breath caught. Marcus's death wasn't public. Nola, she'd only mentioned it to Sarah during one of their after-class talks. Had Sarah shared it, or had someone else been watching her more closely than she realized? She confronted Sarah gently, and the girl admitted she'd confided in a friend who'd spread the word. The note, Sarah guessed, was from Nate, the quietest of Jake's crew, who'd been absent from the hallway confrontation. Alina didn't pursue it. But the note marked a turning point. Jake's clique dialed back their antics, wary of Sarah's evidence and Alina's quiet strength. In class, Alina noticed subtle changes. Tyler asked a question about the Civil War. Mia stopped snapping photos. And Jake, though still sullen, stopped calling her Sparkles. Sarah blossomed, joining the history club Alina started, where a small group of students dove into projects about unsung heroes. The real test came at the spring assembly, months later. Hargrove invited Alina to speak, a rare honor for a first-year teacher. She took the stage, no glitter in sight, and shared a story about Harriet Tubman, a woman who used strategy and courage to defy impossible odds. "History shows us that strength isn't about being the loudest," she said, her eyes sweeping the crowd. "It's about standing up, even when you're underestimated." The applause was thunderous, and in the back, Jake clapped too, his face unreadable but his defiance gone. Elena's classroom became a haven for students like Sarah, who found their voices through her lessons. She never spoke of the glitter prank again, but the nickname Sensei Carter stuck, a badge of respect. As the school year ended, Alina stood in her empty classroom, packing her bag. A photo of Marcus sat on her desk, his smile a reminder of why she'd fought to be here. She'd turned humiliation into triumph, not with fists, but with precision. And Grace loved Elena's epic takedown. Subscribe for more stories of grit and glory. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? Is it Texas, Florida, Ohio, or somewhere else in the USA? Let us know, and stay tuned for more tales that inspire.